like last little elevator pitch and wrap it up. And he took the time to say, if you don't know if you're voting for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Then 3 days later happened the George Floyd. So that was on May 25th, and he was arrested and kneeled on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And, you know, assumedly passed away from that event. And it didn't quite become like nationwide until June, because it was like at the very end of May. So that's when the BLM protest and kind of like overlapping with Antifa, which was kind of like echoing from the impeachment, you know, being acquitted in February. So those kind of somehow both took to the streets simultaneously. And so I guess I'll lead into June. Kind of the big thing was the curfews and the lockdowns, like you said, when you finally like weren't preoccupied with everything that to see everything boarded up in SoCal, and we got notifications on our phones telling us like we had a curfew all of a sudden. So that's where it kind of really hit home that like this isn't like this is the new normal, you know, that they're telling us, and like how it just kept on encroaching more and more, and they always had a reason for it, you know, right. Of course. And you know, like me
from the first time, why not do more? Yeah, that's scary. It was so easy for them to put us on lockdown just one time, and then it's like, well, now you guys can't be outside after 6,
right?
Outside after 8 without permission, you know.
They were calling businesses, telling them to close early and stuff, like even Target or whatever was closed up early. So if you had to shop at, you know, 8 o'clock or whatever, you know, tough luck that particular night. But it was just interesting that, especially in California, I don't know how exactly it was in other states, but we just surrendered, that it was just accepted that people are going to, you know, terrorize the streets tonight. So like do your due diligence to like protect yourselves, you know. And then meanwhile, we have the whole defund the police, you know, movement. So there's like that animosity and short staffing and restructuring of the police forces in here at the same time that we're having this like amping up and like encouragement even and like acquiescence to, as you're putting boards on your windows and closing business early, you're saying, okay, go ahead and trudge through, I don't know, pillage, I guess.
Yikes. I mean, 20 years ago, that sounds like it'd be a fun time. But looking at the consequences as an adult, and a lot of these people that they, you know, that think they're doing the right thing, they are on the younger side. A lot of the ones effectively causing violence and destruction are actually older and doing it deliberately without any movement or agenda aside, but aside the one that just is literally just to destroy communities. And I think I hope that group of people eventually is able to dissipate, or we're able to apprehend them as best as possible. Peaceful protests are possible.
Right.
Believing in something, that's absolutely right. As far as injustices and racism, that's neither here nor there. As far as our human rights and the human race is concerned, that's neither here nor there. Yes, please, by all means, fight for your rights, you know, to exist.
Right.
You know, that's what we're all doing here. You know what I mean? We need to be able to coexist. So, you know, it's a matter of seeing the destruction, and this destruction is what allows them to tell us, shame on you, you bad child. And this is what happens. This is the end result. So as opposed to, you know, destroying our communities, it would make more sense for us to come together and open a dialogue and be able to talk about these things and create ideas for better police reform and longer police training. And we have to also understand that a life for a life, that does exist, whether you're a police officer or not. Human beings, if I went and attacked Kamiko, I think I would hope that she would fight back. And you know what I mean? You know, a fight to the death is exactly that. And at the end of the day, all of us are human nature. Our human nature is to survive no matter what. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's our
first human instinct.
It's our very first human instinct. Yeah, it's caveman instinct, for crying out loud. You know, but you know, that being said, when a life is in danger, a reaction is going to ensue no matter what. you want to base these reactions on assumptions and on skin colors and accents and whatever else deplorable thing that you can use against somebody that has nothing to do with their character, by all means do that. But let's hope that those people are the ones that we demonize and criminalize, and not take something as tragic as somebody's life and turn it into something that we all have to face in a way where we're all to blame. You know what I mean? So instead of putting blame on everybody, I was kind of hoping to see something where this movement turned things where we're all coming together the same way we did for Kobe.
Right.
You know what I mean? It didn't seem to, and it doesn't seem to be happening that way still. But yeah, the curfews and the COVID and the George Floyd and how everything just fuses together was a hard blow for the middle of that summer, among other blows. But yeah, it's a hard one. Yeah.
Yeah, they really used it as, you know, he was immortalized, and there was so much like fan art, and everybody was so like personally touched and moved by his story, and, you know, prayers out to his daughter and his family and everything like that. And never mind that, you know, his criminal history, never mind that the cops that arrested him were brothers-in-law, that the Derek Chauvin was, you know, had wife, was sister of the other cop, and a lot of other inconsistencies and stuff. I mean, George Floyd had, you know, the Masonic tattoos and all those types of things. So there's, you know, there's a lot of things about the story, and people, you know, like they've seen the movies like Wag the Dog and stuff like that. We know that there's such a thing as political theater. And so I forget who quotes it as, but like, you know, when professional wrestling was finally like just accepted that, okay, it's official that it's fake, but, you know, we're just going to keep doing it, and we're going to just enjoy that it's fake, but we're still doing it. That's kind of like where politics is now, that like it's evident that it's fake, and that it's, you know, we know that there's lobbyists and all these unfair things, and that it doesn't have the general public truly at heart, and that it's not, you know, like all the people that are making these lockdowns and curfews haven't missed a paycheck, you know, and like, so, in fact, they've gotten increases and bonuses, and so their own stimuluses. So it was interesting in June, yeah, that to latch on to George Floyd as a symbol of, you know, just like what's wrong with America, and instead of allowing us to unite and really see who is most affected and implicated and forgotten in our country and how we can help those people, we latched on to making everybody at fault of racism. And now everybody has to revalidate themselves by following a particular, you know, role or script, you know, that you post a black square on your on your social media, and that means that you're a good person, that you're following along, you know. And meanwhile, BLM, you know, is openly founded by communists, and is, you know, has in their mission statements about right, wanting to break up the family, and you know, they're not actually investing back into the community. If you look on their website and just do a couple clicks, you can see how all that money is getting funneled back into Democratic political candidates, into primarily Biden and Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, like, you know, so it's not even going to Black people. And again, Black is a status, not a nationality. So even to affiliate yourself with that or identify as that, you're structuring yourself differently in the nation. So like, we're not saying that melanated people don't matter, obviously, but it was just interesting that like BLM has kind of swept through and is just desecrating communities, instead of actually, like, some of the business owners that were, because at the time we were just barely starting to open up again. They're like, okay, you can open up as long as you do the masks and have all these like partitions. And, you know, they were just barely starting to let some of the small businesses that hadn't already or irrevocably, like, you know, had to close down, that some of them were starting to open back up, and then they had to board up and get their things bashed in and have to close down then because of that. So it like gave that hope. And then, you know, and how many Black or melanated people died during those protests, you know, cops and civilians alike, or, you know, Trump supporters or whatever, but none of them like caught the flagship that George Floyd got.
Right.
And meanwhile, George Floyd got 3 high profile funerals when all year they've been telling us that you can't have a funeral for your own mother, you know.
I didn't realize that. I remember the one, I think it was in Texas, and it was huge.
They packed it.
Yeah, 3. That's
3. Yeah. Joe Biden attended, I think, at least 2 of them, but yeah.
Very presidential of them.
That was June.
That was June. I didn't realize that. That's incredible.
It was a slap in the face. It's like, we're doing this for you. Boom, boom.
Last I read, 37 people lost their lives. I could be wrong. I think it could be 37 people or 37 police officers, and then another number for people. But I could be wrong. But the one story that I did read was the one of David Dorn, who was a police officer who did lose his life amongst the protests, and what was a melanated man. Right. You know what I mean? And I don't hear much about him.
Nobody was drawing pictures for him.
BLM movement. I don't hear much about him. And,
right.
No disrespect, because as I said, a life is a life. Choices get made, and sometimes those choices aren't always. They don't always work out in our favor. You know what I mean? So lives get lost. You know, in that sense. No matter what, whether the good choices or the bad, lives do get lost, and unfortunately, we are in a place where we lump in both lives in the same place, and we seem to honor one more than the other. And morally, I don't know how else to put that. I don't know how recognition got rewired the way it has. But respectfully, may George Floyd rest in peace. May David Dorn rest in peace, and may both of their families find the comfort that they deserve, especially any children involved.
Any loss of life is tragic.
It's tragic.
Right. It's tragic. And no one deserves to go out in that way, of course.
Yeah, no kidding. Nobody deserves to go out. We don't know exactly. Right. Jeez, I can't imagine. But
to like manipulate, to antagonize, and then manipulate human emotion, and then harness it towards a particular agenda, like that's what we need. That's why we can't be in our fields too much. We have to like be ahead of the game, art of war, you know, like be logical about these things, because there's always going to be those things and pitfalls to trigger us into our emotions, to make irrational choices that do put us into dangerous situations. Like some people at those protests really felt like they were fighting a fascist leader who's making a racist nation, and is like that their friends and brethren are getting shot in the streets, you know. And then some of those people ended up like, there was a teenage girl, I think, that was asthmatic, and like they gassed them, and so she had an asthma attack and died, you know. And she thought that she was, you know, part of she believed the TV and all that she was standing for, and died for that. And like, it's a beautiful thing to die for your fellow man, but like in what context? Like, what did you achieve from your death? Like, so that has to be like, we have to value our life enough to, we're all going to die at some point, so let's die for something, but die for something in a way that's going to do something at the end of it, you know.
Right. Honorably, and I think just living a good life alone is enough.
Exactly.
That's an honorable life, you know. And we have a little bit chance of living a longer one when we live an honorable, moral life. So cool, man. You know, the odds are with us in that sense. You know, that's personally on a personal, humble level. That was a hard lesson that I had to learn. And you know, it's different for everybody. You know, and at the same time, you know, redemption exists personally, and on the level of a higher power. So yeah. So well, I'm just trying to end this month on a positive note, because geez. Jeez,
what do you?
That's heavy. So let's do July.
Okay. So I think we probably both have the same one for this.
Better not. Go ahead. We probably need to go.
But I have another one just in case. But Miss
I knew it.
Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So the madam of famed Jeffrey Epstein, who killed himself in prison, as we all know.